Hello, everyone. Listen, it is a privilege and truly an honor for us here at Tri-Strategies to be on this Zoom meeting with all of you. For those that might not know or be aware, I have a very special place in my heart for Arizona. Eddie Ablister is my name, and I run Tri-Strategies. I spent 10 years in the Arizona State House of Representatives and Senate, representing District 26. I was a state representative and then ran for the state Senate and worked in that Tempe district for many, many years. Tempe, South Scottsdale, the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, and a little bit of our areas in Guadalupe. Tamara, there we go. And is there anyone on here that I'm trying to look through, see if there's faces I might recognize, but I had the privilege of running this piece of legislation when I was a state senator with then Senator Linda Lopez, and we certainly tried our best to no avail, but we're passionate about the topic, passionate about what we do here, and I'm thrilled to work in conjunction with Paul Klein, who is just a brilliant, oh, hey, Janet, that's awesome. Paul does this work daily on comms and messaging to legislators, and we've been very, very successful here in Nevada. And so we have a firm that's in both states, and we're looking forward to sharing and imparting some of the wisdom and comms directives that we've learned in Nevada and bringing it out to Arizona. And, the ultimate goal is getting this piece of legislation passed, putting it into law so that the many, many, many families across Arizona can benefit from what medical aid in dying can bring to their loved ones. And we've got a nice game plan put together with your executive leadership team, and this is part of it. This messaging and comms portion is a huge part of it. And so, Paul, are we ready to go on the PowerPoint?
Yes, we are.
All right, so I'm going to turn over to Paul so you can start that PowerPoint presentation.
All right. So again, just my name is Paul Klein. You guys will have access to this deck at the end too, but here's my contact information, Eddie's contact information. Just wanted to mention that, Arizona End of Life Options, along with these incredible partners, Compassion and Choices Action Network and Death with Dignity, all these sites here just have outstanding resources to always pull from. If you ever want to just continue to dive deeper and hone your advocacy skills, we're going to show you a lot of stuff that both these groups have, all three of these groups have put together through the next few slides. But again, I just want to make sure that you guys have these resources for ongoing learning.
At Compassion and Choices, our mission is to improve care, expand options, and empower everyone to chart their journey at the end of life. We envision a society that affirms life and accepts the inevitability of death, embraces expanded options for compassionate dying, and empowers everyone to choose end-of-life care that reflects their values, priorities, and beliefs. As the leader of this movement, we work with national and regional community groups, state legislatures, the United States Congress, major national organizations, state courts, and the healthcare community. Our programs seek to improve and authorize medical aid in dying across the country. We seek to close the disparities gap in end-of-life care planning so that all communities can finish strong and transform how we die with dementia. Everything we do at Compassion and Choices is about inspiring people to claim their voice and agency in end-of-life care. We believe that the path to change starts with the individual, which is why patient-directed care stands at the core of all we do. We educate the public about the importance of documenting one's own end-of-life values and priorities, and by providing essential information about the full range of options available. Compassion and Choices is working towards an America that respects everyone's right to make their own end-of-life care decisions in consultation with their doctors and loved ones. We defend existing end-of-life options from efforts to restrict access. We advocate for expanded options to ensure everyone can die according to their own values and priorities. At Compassion and Choices, we help you write your own story.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. The right-wing media has lots of questions about why the Biden document case.
Hey, Norm, whoever Norm is, your screen is not muted.
Is what the Biden special prosecutor will
the,
do now. We talked to
mute Norm's phone.
Investigated Bill Clinton, who's also Donald Trump's impeachment lawyer, about what he expects and what he would do. Come on.
We're seeing a record number of migrants and women and children, and so many young.
One sec, I think Paul's going to try to mute.
President Biden should have seen yesterday. We're here outside of this temporary campus with a sidewalk.
See here.
There we go.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, so that video, again, Compassion Choices, wonderful group. Death with Dignity, wonderful group. We work arm in arm, all of us together. I just wanted to show that video because I thought that it really sets the table on just kind of the general mission of all of us together as a coalition. So here tonight we're to talk about advocacy, and advocacy raises awareness of an issue and is most meaningful when it comes from constituents. And so here's how advocacy benefits AZELO. Essentially, you all can help us share facts and information, dispel myths, demonstrate public support, increases the issue's visibility, and inspires others to speak. And just how the advocacy works arm in arm with the lobbying, think of it in terms of advocacy sets the table on the broader issue, while the lobbying effort can be most effective on the narrow issues. So you all really set the table for the lobbyists to go in the room and really dig into the details and try and move no votes to yes votes. And that stuff just does not happen. That good, high quality, convincing a vote doesn't happen without the advocacy setting the table. There's just another example of some advocacy. It's 2 minutes.
I am Lori Wilcox. I am 61 years old. I live in Clark, New Jersey. I'm a retired nurse. I've had the rheumatoid arthritis for 30 years, so it's invaded my lung tissue. My sister Melissa is also ill.
My name's Melissa Wilcox. I live in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. I'm 57 and I'm a retired disabled RN nurse. My diagnosis is small cell lung cancer. It's the most deadly of all lung cancers.
At the end stage of my disease, I do not want to suffer through air hunger in the very last days of my life.
Everyone I speak to actually supports me in support for aid in dying, including my doctors.
I've had 18 surgeries. I am definitely not giving up with my illness. I plan to fight my illness for as long as I can. I enjoy life. I like sitting on the beach. I like spending time training my dog. I love gardening. I love driving my little car.
People that would like to have this, the aid in dying past, are people that love life and want to live it to the fullest up to the last day that they can. I have 2 small grandchildren that I love to death. I don't want to die, but I'm going to. and I'd like to have the opportunity to do it my own way. I do want to die at home with my family and friends around me. I need the lawmakers to act right now because I may not have tomorrow.
Okay, so I wanted to show you that just to try and show some of the passion that you can all have behind your advocacy. Not all of our advocates on this issue are going to be actually one, in the process of wanting or requesting this prescription. So you have to kind of push out your passion on behalf of some of those folks. And that's why I wanted to show you just some of those videos. Some of the advocacy do's is learn the basics before contacting a legislator. You want to identify yourself and cause every time you contact a legislator. Legislators meet hundreds of people and they can't remember everyone. And there's don't take any offense to that. Even us as lobbyists and professional advocates, I have to introduce myself 10 times to the same person. You want to know the status of the bill and refer to it by its number. A lot of times when you call a legislator and you say medical aid in dying, death with dignity, end of life options, or one of those names of the potential acts, they have no idea what that is. They will know if you say Senate Bill 15 or House Bill 1. So you always want to know the status, where the bill's at, and refer to it by its number, and we'll help you with that, of course. You want to be brief, less than 10 minutes. Legislators are very busy, and this really comes with kind of practicing your pitch. And of course, I'm talking about on the phone calls or in person, and even to emails. If you're writing emails or letters, you want them to be brief and succinct to the point, because they're very busy. And if they get too busy, they'll just pass it on to a staff member or just read the first line. And the truth is they have thousands of bills that they have to understand. So it's just they're doing their best, right? You always want to be honest and authentic. Don't ever lie. That will always backfire. It's okay to admit that you don't know if they ask you a question, and you just simply say, I'll find the answer for you. And it actually gives you a great opportunity to follow back up and create another contact.
That's one of the best things. Yeah, that's one of the best things you can absolutely do, is if someone asks you a question, that secondary contact with the legislator is key. So trying to elicit them to ask you a question, say, hey, I'm going to get back to you at that, really is a nice way to get that hook and keep them really interested in what you're talking about.
And ask a legislator for their support. Say, will you vote yes for this bill? And you always want to have some call to action, some ask. You're a constituent, and you've got to ask for don't be afraid to ask. And then, of course, share your contact information so that they can follow up with you. Okay, here's some don'ts. You don't want to be partisan, argumentative, or put legislators on the defensive. Specifically on this issue, we really need this issue to stay nonpartisan. So you don't want to push any of your own political beliefs. You just want to stick to this issue and why it's needed for anybody suffering from an incurable disease. Don't want to be argumentative. And if you put a legislator on the defensive, it's just never going to go right. You don't want to just speak the whole time. You want to listen, try and get some feedback, try and answer some questions, and that will create good rapport, good conversational atmosphere with the legislator. Don't expect the legislators to be specialists. This is why you want to be accurate and state your purpose and be succinct. They're very busy, and therefore they're typically generalists. So if you have, a vast knowledge of the medication used or the process or hospice or palliative care, all these type of things, and you're using acronyms and jargon, they're not going to know what that is. So you always want to keep it general and go the extra distance and try and help them understand, and don't expect them to understand all the jargon and acronyms that we're all comfortable with using. Don't be put off by their long-winded answers. Sometimes you'll start talking and then you'll go to listen, and the legislator will just ramble on and try and filibuster the time out. Don't be put off by that. You just want to, at some point, just narrow it back to the point. Don't take anything personally or burn bridges. So legislators and just people in general will often ask questions that, they're just dumb questions. And sometimes they can be perceived as offensive, right? Or a little brash. So when a legislator will sometimes ask a question about death, or if you say something like, a loved one of mine is going through this incurable illness, and they come back to you and they just say something harsh like, well, hope she dies, or something just, it would seem like it would rip your heart out. Just don't take it personally. Sometimes legislators can be just really kind of practical and about stuff and less sympathizing with it. And then there are legislators that are very sympathetic and very empathetic to the issue. But either in that situation, you just don't want to be, take anything personally. Don't be offended if they're unable to meet and they have you meet with their staff. That happens oftentimes, especially when they get busy. And don't use form letters or say the exact same things as other. And Eddie could talk about his experience and getting formed letters.
Yeah, I think, first to the first part, let me emphasize how important it is not to talk about any other issue, because I will tell you, these legislators will, especially from the Republican aisle, and some on the Democrat, will bring up abortion or try to bring up abortion or other very one-off associative policies. And the last thing you want to do is hurt your cause by doing something like that. Keep it as neutral as possible. Keep it as personal, about your personal experience here and your personal narrative, your story that you're sharing. Don't bring up any other policies. And then the concept of form letters, when we work with clients, we definitely ask, put your own voice in there. We believe that the message that you can put forth to an individual legislator will give you everything you need, and give them that opportunity to respond personally back to you and hopefully set up a call. Form letters, I can't tell you the amount of form letters I used to get from various advocacy organizations, and it was all the same thing. And there were just individuals in our district that were sending them, and legislators were just basically sent them to the trash. So they won't see it. It's a waste of your time to send a form letter.
Very important that to remember is you and your lawmaker need each other. Like sometimes a policymaker, a legislator, or politician seems, a famous person, has a lot of power, and they do, but they need you. They need your vote. They need your support. So you have to remember that. And lawmakers can only make informed votes with your information. So just always remember that. Okay, you all may know this stuff, but I just want to make sure for some of you that doesn't know this, but here's how you find your legislator. You can identify your legislative district and representative, and this is linked, and I'll send this to you as well. But essentially, you can go to this website, you can type in your address, and it'll tell you all your representatives from bottom to top. It'll tell you who your school board representatives, all the way up to President of the United States. But in there, it will say, here is your district representative in the House, your Arizona Senate representative, and their contact information. Then what you can do is you can send a personal email or call their office. All legislators' contact information can be found at this azleg.gov/member roster. And again, this will all be linked in this presentation that you'll have in your email after this webinar. But it will list their phone number, their office phone number, their email. So right then and there, you'll be able to have the resources to contact them and advocate.
Every legislator in the Arizona legislature email address ends azleg.gov. Every single one of them, and their preface portion of the email is their member roster name. So for me, it was E. Ablisser. And you could find that exactly on the membership roster. It'll tell you their specific roster name. And so you just put it that way. There'll also be a link, and you can also send an email directly from the website as well.
Okay, so you have the do's and don'ts. You have your legislators' contact information. Here's just some preparation tips before you're preparing to connect. So before calling or testifying, write a script, jot down some notes, have some general direction on what you want to say. Sometimes you get up there, you can be real confident. You can be an excellent public speaker. You could be in sales, but sometimes you get up there, you clam up and you forget what to say, and you feel like the time is running out and you're looking at the clock. That's where you just gather yourself and refer to the script so that you can make the most out of your opportunity. Keep it simple, but significant. Always identify yourself as a voter. I am a voter of, I live on the corner of yada, yada, yada. I went to this high school. I'm your voter. That is something that will always turn a legislator's ear. Share a personal story. Tell them why it matters to you. I'm a big fan, especially when you're talking to Republicans, to use compelling stats such as polling, and I'll share some of that stuff with you. This kind of stuff, if you're not able to move a legislator based on sympathy or trying to get empathy on a specific story, you could always try different angles like, hey, here's the numbers behind this. For example, a majority of Arizonans support this legislation. That's the polling. Those are your constituents that are saying they want access to this medicine. Your job is to represent them, and they're telling you this is what they want you to represent them. Share endorsements. Endorsements are always great, and we'll give you a list of those folks too. And then always remind them that end-of-life options are personal choices. Sometimes a legislator will vote based on their own personal beliefs. And then sometimes a legislator will vote based on what the personal beliefs or the wants of their constituents. And so you always want to remind them that they're there to represent the constituents. And if a majority, again, back to the polling, if a majority of the constituents support this legislation, that should be something they should really consider before they vote or they do something to block a potential hearing. Use different narratives, and here are some examples. So you have, of course, empathy for those suffering. You always want to dispel any type of misinformation, such as coercion. That seems to be, the opposition usually pushes towards that, some type of coercion. And they're really outlandish claims like, oh, insurance companies or hospitals, or a family member, all these kinds of things. Coercion is a crime. And there has not been, for example, in Oregon, which has had death with dignity since the mid-90s, has no, that's a long time. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of prescription requests. There is simply no data that backs that coercion is any type of factor in this legislation. It's important, and the opposition will try and push that. Doctors support is always a great narrative. Seniors support, always a great narrative. And this is all based on polling. Religious parishioner support based on polling. There's a difference between the hierarchy, like the leadership of, say, the Catholic Church or the Mormon Church, than the parishioners themselves. There's the one opposition leader that we hear from a lot is a bishop with the Catholic Church. And while he's adamantly opposed and travels the country speaking against medical aid in dying, his parishioners who we've polled are in support in the high 60s, low 70%. So that's always important, that a bishop doesn't speak for the beliefs of the parishioners according to polling. And that's important, especially with Republicans, to let them know that. And then, of course, let them know about influential supporters, colleagues, mentors, and folks like that. Just to kind of review the legislation in its kind of briefest point. I mean, this is a detailed piece of legislation. There's a lot of safeguards. There's a lot of criteria, but I just wanted to put some of the main points out there, which is the act itself, essentially, generally, is a terminally ill adult patient with a prognosis of 6 months or less to live and suffering from an incurable disease may obtain a doctor's prescription for medicine that they may voluntarily take to peacefully and compassionately end their life.
Why Arizona needs the medical aid in dying option. Unless you unexpectedly get hit by the proverbial bus, you may have a lot of medical interventions to deal with at the end of your life. Some of these interventions may be welcomed by you. Some may seem invasive and needless. Others may actually increase the pain and discomfort for both you and your loved ones. Currently, this is all just a matter of chance. But can we have better control about how we spend the last months of our lives? Yes, we can have a plan and tell others what we want and what we don't want. For example, we can follow all treatments suggested by our medical provider. Or we can choose to end medical treatments and use hospice and palliative care if we become terminal. We can also stop eating and drinking if our terminal illness becomes just too painful to bear. There's a fourth choice, which is to use medical aid in dying. But that law is not yet in effect in Arizona. 11 states have medical aid in dying laws to improve the end-of-life experience. But Arizona is not one of them. At the same time, the majority of Arizona residents are in favor of this law. Since 2007, the Arizona legislature has not acted on any of the medical aid in dying bills presented to legislative committees. The Arizona legislature has not even discussed this important medical provision. This inaction is against the popular will of the majority of Arizona residents. To help get this law passed, join the Arizona End-of-Life Options, nicknamed AZELO. Our legislature cannot ignore a large grassroots movement telling them what they want. Go to azendoflifeoptions.org and join your legislative district's action team. You and others will work together to make a big difference in the state of Arizona. With your help in this legislative session, the bill may speed right through to be signed into law. Go to AZ.
I love that video. It's very good. You may have seen that before. I just wanted to show it again, just to kind of bring that all together. So some of the significant criteria to mention: you have to have a terminal illness confirmed. You have to be an adult. Age or disability does not make a person eligible. This is really important. A lot of the opposition we hear is, if based on somebody's perspective, the quality of life of an individual may be a reason for somebody to try and get this medication. For example, if a patient is, or a person is quadriplegic, they might be perfectly healthy and they are simply not eligible. So it's important to say that some of the opposition will often default to that and say that people with disability are pushed into this medication. They just simply do not qualify if they're healthy. So that's important to know. A patient has to be mentally capable of making an informed healthcare decision, and they're actually evaluated. And those evaluations they're rigorous. They're not something that you can fake through. So patients are able to be sure, and they have to be able to self-administer. And then, of course, coercion is a crime. Again, I picked some of these out because these are typically the opposition narratives that we hear. Here's some more further safeguards, and again, this will be for your reading later. Several requests. Just seeing if there's anything. Life insurance payments can't be denied. That's really important. And of course, a patient can withdraw the request or not take the medication at any time, of course. And it's also important to know that the chain, from doctor to hospital to pharmacy, they can it's all optional for them to participate in this. So it's important to know some of those things too.
One of the things our team does often is work with voices on the other side. And a lot of it's simply to create relationships, to create that dynamic of ongoing communication and being deliberate in how we engage, really not trying to play gotcha politics or surprise folks. And frankly, every single time we engage in a conversation, right, a conversation around, the use of medical aid in dying to take away burdens from family members for someone who's old or disabled, and we sit down and we walk through it and say, absolutely, we totally hear what you're saying. And we are following these best practices that you and, Catholic Conference of Bishops and various, doctors organizations have brought forward. And these things have all been put into the bill significantly throughout in the nation. And we're highlighting it for them because every time we go into a legislator's office, they repeat the exact same things. They repeat the same narrative that this is a way to get rid of old people or individuals that are disabled for no reason, to take away burdens off the family, and incentive for life insurance. I mean, the comments go on and on and on. And ultimately it comes back to, this angle of, listen, these things have all been addressed in the bill. There's safeguards in place to protect against it. We have not seen any of these things happen in any state since the inception of this legislation.
Great point. Typical patient is someone who's older. And it's important to know that, and to let legislators know that if a patient has stage 4 cancer and they're going through several rounds of chemo, it's usually after all that, right? It's after all those type of things. And legislators really need to know that some of the opposition will try and push these kind of images of younger people and their lives gone. They're pushed into this before their time. These are people that are fighting for their lives and they're suffering. And so it's important to kind of paint that picture for legislators. We went through this. You saw this on the video. Here's all the states where currently authorized or opportunities where legislation is. So you could see Arizona is marked where legislation is always presented. This is a poll that Azello did through OH Predictive, and 60% on this poll. This is January 2022, so it's fairly recent. And I'd bet this is just like what we saw in other states. The more education, actually, the more advocacy out there, the more times people are talking about it in news media, that number will just continue to rise. And with good and consistent advocacy, we can watch that jump 5 to 6 points in a matter of a legislative session. very easily. It's just all a matter of education. What's really important to note here is independents, right? Independents are up there. It's a very high marker, especially in Arizona. Arizona and especially Republicans need to know that, hey, independents who decide a lot of your all close elections, they support this legislation. Here's just some stuff on doctors. There's always new polling that comes out. Some of this stuff is a bit dated, but I've never seen in any poll that I've never seen it go down. It's only gone up and increased. So 62% of doctors who practice in states that do not allow assisted death reported that they have been in a situation in which they wish the patient could have been able to exercise that right. Doctors support this. And we actually have a lot of medical groups that have endorsed this legislation, and most medical state doctors groups, societies, stay neutral on it. Religious leaders support. Here's just some folks from different denominations that you can see. These are all leaders from all different kind of things, but it's also important to know that a lot of these religious leaders support this legislation. They support death with dignity and compassionate end of life. It isn't, this option versus religion. That is just not, it's not even close. This is Dolores Huerta. She is a big advocate for this legislation. Here's a little video. I think she speaks specifically to Nevada. A couple of these videos, one's from Delaware, one's from New Jersey, but I just wanted to show you what she says as an advocate. And again, she's a celebrity, but I just want to show you how she advocates for it.
Hi, I'm Dolores Huerta. I watched my mother, Alicia St. John Chavez, die in agony from breast cancer. Thankfully, Nevada lawmakers are considering a bill that would allow terminally ill adults to end unbearable suffering under the care of doctors and surrounded by their loved ones. Please urge lawmakers to pass end-of-life options by visiting compassionandchoices.org/Nevada.
Here is our primary message going into this session. Hear the bill. It's real simple. Here's kind of the roadmap last few years of where we're at. A lot of these is just the bill being introduced on the floor multiple times. And it went through a first reading in 2022, but essentially it stalls out on the floor. We want to push the message of hear the bill. So targeted priorities in your advocacy. First of all, your district representative is always great. I mean, that if you just want to reach out to somebody and that represents you and tell that's excellent. You should do that anyways. This is just a list of kind of, in order to get the bill heard, here's our targeted priorities. It's the legislative leadership, and then Senate Health and Human Services leadership. And if we get through there and we get a hearing, I think the votes look pretty good on that Senate Health Committee. If we can hold them, then we start talking about the House leadership. And at any point, of course, local media, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but op-eds, letters to the editor, and essentially the message is hear the bill. So here's kind of the leadership names. Again, you guys will have this to look at. Senator Shope is specifically of interest here. Here's just kind of a makeup of Senate Health and Human Services. These four highlighted are our main targets. If we can move Shope to hear the bill, and we can, sustain Senator Wadsack's vote, this thing passes the Senate Health. We'll get, again, this is when we get to this bridge, we'll cross it, but these are the five highlighted folks that on the health that we'd be focused on, really pointing advocacy towards. Talking points. This issue is supported by a majority of her constituents. Here's the polling. This issue deserves a hearing. This issue is worth a debate. Give Arizonans a hearing so they may share their comments publicly. This is these type of talking points, specifically with the leadership, Republican leadership. It fits within their values that they say that if every topic deserves a debate. So you need to push that back on them and say, hey, look at the polling. Look at the advocacy. How many calls, emails? This has gone on. It's been on your docket several years in a row. This issue, at the very least, deserves a hearing. We need to hear the facts. We need to hear testimony from our citizens, and we need to have a debate. That is what government's supposed to do. And pushing that message as a talking point up to Republicans is something that we believe could help force a hearing. If contacting local media, local news always welcomes original letters with ideas and viewpoints that encourage discussion. Here's something to know. They need to be short, 150 to 200 words. They have to be authentic, which means they need to come from your personal email. So if you send it to a letter to the editor, your local paper or the main paper or a TV station, a website will typically post opinion and comment. It needs to come from your email so they know it's not coming from a lobbyist, right? What needs to come across is authentic, and you want to be truthful. It's always great to make your letter compelling and engaging so that it's social media shareable. Media love this, because if they post something and it's shared, 20, 25 times on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, that's driving traffic back to their site. They love this stuff. And if you write something that's short, significant, and it's socially shareable, they will absolutely post it and it will get shared. The message is that ultimately, this is a personal decision that only the individual can make. And that's why the Arizona electorate supports this legislation.
So the bill has not been assigned or dropped. Legislative Council is continually working on it with Senator Birch. Once that bill is codified, we will see a bill number. It'll go on the website and it'll be blasted out. You all will see the bill number and see the entirety of the bill once it gets there. Let me talk a little bit about statewide initiatives. One, they're extremely expensive. There's a lot of signatures, which I absolutely think we can get. Unlike other states like Nevada, you have to pass an initiative twice at the voter level in order for it to become part of the Constitution. It is a constitutional change when it goes to the initiative, but one of the preventative things about initiatives is just how expensive they get. So of course we'd prefer to go the legislative route and see what kind of successes we can have there.
Thanks for your preparation and presentation this evening. Do we know where our new governor stands, Governor Hobbs, and is there any advantage or advocacy that we should direct to her office?
Absolutely. So we will absolutely ask you to direct advocacy towards her. Governor Hobbs is a dear friend and served with her in the Senate, and I know she's been a supporter of this piece of legislation in their time in the Senate. This is one of those things where we'll see how we can effectively move this legislation and integrate it into some of the priorities for Governor Hobbs and some of the horse trading that happens down at the Capitol every legislative session. So yes, let her know we support her, we love her, we're grateful for her support, see what she could do from an executive perspective, and then we'll keep working on the outside. I want to emphasize, we want to be friendly with everyone. We want to really emphasize the relationship building and create that dynamic, because you know what, they might say no to us, but another legislator might say yes, or the very next year they might say yes. And Paul and I have seen this in other states. Emphasize that dynamic and create the value on what your voice in a very kind and insightful way will really be powerful. So thanks everyone.
So thank you again. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. So there are 3 specific follow-ups. First of all, everyone who registered for this is going to get an email. Paul mentioned a couple documents. We're going to have links to those source documents in that email. There's also going to be a link to a replay of this meeting in case you wanted to look at it again, or for those people who did RSVP to it but weren't able to make it. But please feel free to pass those emails along, forward them to people so that they can have the source reference documents and or the links to a replay of this meeting. So that's the first thing that you're all going to get. Secondly, tomorrow we're going to be sending out the first of 2 sets of emails about advocacy and about making your voice heard on medical aid and dying. The first of those is going to go out tomorrow. You're all going to get it. All of our supporters are going to get this email. It's going to be about contacting your legislators and asking to speak with them about medical aid and dying. Okay. And what you're going to get, and when you get this, you're going to get the link to it. Okay. It is going to look like this. If you're seeing my screen right now, it's going to look like this. And Paul provided some information, some reference information about emails, contact information for your legislators. Again, you are going to have those documents, but you don't need that. The link that you're going to get is going to take you to a page like this that you're looking at right now. You're going to click on Start Writing, okay? And it is going to take you. So I'm automatically going to pull up your legislators. These are mine here. And it's going to give you a sample email to send to them. And you can see we've kept this email brief. I'll echo Paul's comments. To the extent that you can customize this to share your specific story, that would be great. But basically, you are writing, and as you see, we have this letter subject from a constituent, because that is very powerful. You're going to write to your legislators, ask to speak with them about medical aid and dying. Then, 2 days after you send this, you're going to get a follow-up email with your legislators' telephone numbers so that you can contact them or contact their offices and follow up on it. Okay. So that's the second set of follow-ups, right? The first one is just recap of this meeting. The second one is writing to your legislators and asking them to meet with them and speak about medical aid and dying. And then once we get a bill number, we're going to send out another set of emails, another letter campaign, as we're calling it, for all of us to contact the members of the respective of the proper committees, the health committees, and ask them to hear the bill. Okay, so those follow-ups are coming to you. Again, we've tried to make it very streamlined and very easy for you to. This will automatically populate you with your legislators. It may ask you for your address, but it'll populate your legislators. It will give you a sample email. Again, to the extent that you can customize that by telling your story in a very brief, concise way, that'll be great. So that'll be coming to all of you and to all of our supporters. And with that, I'll turn back to Dwight.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. So over the next week, for me, the message here is I should be real careful to look in my spam or my promotions file, in addition to my regular email, because sometimes these messages slide into those two. So before you sort of categorically delete both of those, take a look to make sure that these messages Mark's talking about haven't slid into those files. The last message I want to send to you is I'm the chair, again, of the AZELO. We're very excited about the opportunities that we have this year. From your point of view, if you really want a choice at the end of your life, you will take these action steps. All of us will. And it is our time to vote on this. This next 2 weeks is going to be a powerful demonstration of how serious we are about having a choice for ourselves in Arizona at the end of life. And that's my pitch as the chair of the organization. It's wonderful to see this kind of power in a Zoom meeting like this. Thank you all very much. We're going to let you go. The steering committee is going to continue to talk. So the rest of you can have a second glass of wine if you'd like. Appreciate your attendance. Thank you very much.